actually want to talk about the concept of the three bodies and how it interacts with how you approach learning the form. Because I think that's where there's a lot of gaps that develop, mostly because if you think of the form just as what you're learning, and by learning the form, basically you've learned everything about Tai Chi. I think that leads down some really strange paths, and that's where you have people who specialize in a particular way of doing push hands that's not that productive, right? Because thinking about the three bodies idea forces you to do is to start thinking in broader terms. Like, what exactly are you training? Are you training your body? Are you training your chi? Are you training your spirit? There's one thing actually that is also important to understand, is that, to me at least, this idea of the three bodies, right, is a way that in Taoism and in Tai Chi we talk about the nature of the body, and yin and yang is the way that we talk about the process that the body finds itself in. They both have to exist simultaneously, because you can't just exist outside of the forces around you, and the forces, for them to have something to push against, need you to express them. In Taoist terms, like in Chinese medicine, the three bodies is, Jing, Qi, and Shen. So the physical body, the Qi body, and the spirit body, right? Or energetic body and the spirit body. And then on top of that, you have the three dantians within the body, right? So you have the lower, middle, and upper dantians, or energy centers, right, in the body. So you have these ideas of the three that exist on all levels, because even the three dantians are both physical centers, they're energetic centers, and spiritual centers, right? So that you have, in a way, creates a matrix of 9 different points. Your lower dantian is expressed physically, your lower dantian is expressed energetically, and expressed spiritually.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So it complicates things, but at the same time, it also illuminates what exactly is happening as you do the form, or as you warm up, or as you do push hands. Because each aspect is worked on slightly differently, right? So each aspect requires something slightly different and slightly different emphasis. That's the biggest thing. So you want to apply your will, your intent in the training that you're doing. So that when you're training, eventually the goal is to merge all of it together so that everything is happening at once. But that doesn't happen until way into the training, right? So at first, you do want to make sure that you're approaching the form and thinking, where are the holes? What am I not training? What aspect of these three bodies is not being trained or approached or dealt with? Okay. So that's why I think, to me, it's important, because otherwise you start having these holes in your training, right? So, and there's always this is where it gets complicated. But at the same time, the complication is what reveals the holes in the training by being specific about all of these items. So, for example, if you think of the physical body, right? You have the internal aspect of the physical body. In doing the form is simply teaching the body how to move, right? You're learning the internal aspects, is learning about your body, learning where your center of gravity is, how to move, how your foot is connected through the waist into your hand, all those kind of basic principles, right? So that's the internal aspect of training the physical body. And then the external aspect is expressing power, right? So it's how do we as Tai Chi practitioner push? And that's what you find in push hands techniques and things like that. So that's okay. How does the body actually receive energy? How do you turn? How do you express energy? So that's your external aspect of the physical body.
Okay.
Right? So you need the form to train the internal aspect. You need the push hands to train the external aspect.
Okay.
Then we go to the chi body, which is also how chi is too weird of a word for too many people. So chi in the sense of communication, so it's the information flow in and out of the body. So when you're training the chi body, the internal aspect is the meditation, the soft practice, the moving meditation, because the important thing is about flow, right? So it's about becoming sensitive to how efficiently, how well does the information travel through the body, right? So as you do the form, what you're focusing on is flow. So it's not working on, is this the correct position for the arm or the hand, but it's about how well am I transitioning from one position to the other, because that's the flow, that's the sensitivity to the flow, right? That's the transformation in quality of the energy. So that's what you want to do as you do, right? So there the emphasis is slightly different than just learning the physical aspect of the form, because now you're, instead of going for correct posture, you're going for correct flow.
Okay.
So that's the internal aspect of it. But the external is again found mostly in push hands, but in soft push hands, where now you're going, okay, you're receiving somebody else's flow now? Are you transforming that? How is the energy that you're receiving then swirling around and being transformed into something else and given back to your partner? So that's the external aspect, the yang aspect of chi work, or working on the chi body. And then the shen, or spirit body, is your inner self, your sense of self. Because one of the things that happens, especially in self-defense and martial arts, is that you actually lose that kind of the control of the self, where that's where you have panic, you have all of these kind of automatic reactions, fear-based reactions. And what they are is actually the body taking over. So instead of being still being mindful within a fast practice, instead the body takes over and you're guided by your instincts. Well, if you're guided by your instincts, then you're not guided by your higher self. You're not being guided by your conscious self. So the internal work is deep meditation. This is where you do sitting meditation in order to kind of take in a better sense of how your own mind works. Later on, it's also kind of energetically you're developing deeper chi and better quality chi, but that becomes esoteric. that's not actually Tai Chi. That's actually Taoist meditation practice. But in terms of Tai Chi practice, it's the meditation it's the slowness, so that you start discovering within yourself the quiet, calm place from which everything comes out of. Because once you have that, then the external practice of the Shen, the spirit body, is actually, I would say, it's hard push hands, or it's applications. It's actually sparring, because then the challenge is, how do you challenge yourself so that what comes up during these very challenging moments is not your physical reactions, but it's actually your mind. So you have to train yourself that when you're being challenged, what comes up is your consciousness. Instead of your consciousness dropping, and now everything is just an instinct, and fear-based instinct, the fight or flight response. You're training yourself that, no, if something happens and you're in danger, it's your consciousness that rises up.
Become extra conscious.
Exactly. Okay. So that's the training. So you have all these different aspects. You basically have the yin and yang training of the physical body, the chi body, and the spirit body. And they all train slightly differently in different ways. Eventually, if you have a complete practice, you've trained all of them by default,
so
by going
have the 18, because you got 3 by 3 by 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why it's complicated. But at the same time, that if you're not aware of that, I think this is where you lose a lot of the real potential of Tai Chi. Because to me, Tai Chi is potent, it's powerful, because it's really thinking about all of these different aspects. It's trying to train the totality of a human being in all these different situations.